Hi everyone, this is Bev from Redeem the Time for Life, and welcome again to Arise and Shine Homeschool Edition. And this is part 4 of 4, and we have been having a blast, and we hope that the tips and the encouragement that we've been giving to you has been helpful. And so I just want to quickly recap what we have talked about in previous videos, and make sure you go back and actually look at those videos. First one was embracing the pause. We have gone through a period of real change, the entire globe. And so we talked about what that meant for each of us and how we were able to take some positive things during that time and apply it to our homeschooling. And the second was finding your own groove. That's what we talked about in the second video. And and that's where we shared how we set up our day, how we scheduled our day, and we are as different as night and day, and that's okay. And so we just gave some tips for how you can find your own groove. And then the third one was, again, just being flexible. You've got to be flexible with even your own style of learning and parenting and your children's style as well of learning. So that's what we talked about in video 2. And so today, what we're going to talk about for video number 4 is do not play the comparison game. And I'm going to turn it over to Desiree, who's going to talk more about that in detail. Desiree.
Good morning, or day, whenever you're watching. So the comparison game. I think I'm going to start off with a quote. It's once been said that comparison is the thief of joy. And as a new homeschooler, it's very easy to fall into the comparison game, just because you don't really know what you're doing. You don't know if you are going to be doing it right. And so we have a tendency of looking around and comparing our kids to, let's say, another homeschooler's child, or your homeschooling choices to another homeschooler's choices, and then feeling as though we're not doing it right, we're not doing good enough, our child is not where they're supposed to be. But unfortunately, for us, that robs us of our joy, the joy of homeschooling our children, and the joy of being with our children, the joy of just being able to give our children an education that's tailored to them. Because the thing is, nobody is the same. Our families are all different. And therefore, if we are doing different things in our home, there's no possible way that we would be using exactly the same tools. It's also very dangerous to compare your children to other children, because I like to think of the popcorn in a pot analogy. We put popcorn seeds into a pot all at the same time, all at the same temperature, yet every popcorn seed pops when it's ready. And so our children are exactly the same way. Some of our children may not read till they're 12, and some of our children may read when they're 3. And that's perfectly okay, because each child is totally different. They are individuals. And it's amazing because I have 5 children, and they all came from me. And I wonder, how could 5 people that came from the same mother and father be so different? But even within my own family, I need to be careful not to compare my oldest to my middle, or my middle to my youngest, because everybody's so different. So be very careful not to feel as though you have to bring your children up to a certain standard, but respect them as individuals, as who they are and where they are, and let your homeschooling journey meet them right where they are with what they need.
Thanks, Desiree. Very well said. And so now I'm going to move to Dinah.
Yeah, everything that Desiree just said, bang on. I definitely echo that. I was also thinking, while there are some benchmarks that do correlate with development and things like that. So, when you have a baby and by this age, they should be doing this, and this age should be doing that, like physical stuff, maybe they're lifting their head or they're crawling. And so sometimes I think that trickles over to the academics. So now, okay, you're 3, you're 4, you should know all your letters, you should know all of this because so-and-so knows that. And then coming out of the public school system like my kids did, and you're part of this greater system, you're put into this average, right? So in grade 1, you're supposed to be doing this. In grade 2, you're supposed to be doing this. And so if they don't do that, then everyone gets all worried. So now you pull them out, there's still that comparison, like, okay, they're falling behind. Well, falling behind from what and from whom, right? So that's the other part that I think is really important. In addition to us comparing ourselves to other parents, right? So just because your child is not doing very well, or it seems not to be doing well, they're picking up things very quickly, it doesn't make you a bad parent, and it doesn't make another woman a better mom, or another dad a better dad, because their kid is seemingly doing better than your child is doing. So and I know a lot of times that is validation. So when our children do well, it validates us as a parent. And so it really has nothing to do with the child. It more has to do with our own self-esteem. So I know for me personally, I had to check my self-esteem at the door, and make sure that I wasn't trying to have my children at a certain level so that I look like a good parent. So I can't compare myself to Marcy or Desiree or Lori or Bev or anybody, because that's not doing myself justice, it's not doing my children justice, and it's definitely not giving God the glory. Because at the end of the day, He is the one that gets all the praise. So if I'm just doing something to live up to someone else because the grass looks green on the other side, who am I really magnifying? So that was a hard look I had to take at myself.
And so that's a good point, Dinah, is really the two quick questions there again is, well, who am I comparing? Why do I have this standard? Sort of who am I comparing to? So that's one of a great question that you can ask yourself when you find yourself potentially about to do some comparison, is stop and ask yourself, well, why am I doing this? And what standard am I comparing, whether myself or my child to? So thank you, Desiree and Dinah, for that. So Marcy, do you want to pick up on that, please?
Sure. I think if we remember, I'd gotten this card when I started out homeschooling, and it was our 12 reasons why. And I think if we hold on to the why we homeschool, it would help us to kind of jump back and not do the comparison thing. So if I know why I really started out homeschooling, a part of it is so that I could offer my kids that opportunity to learn according to their own pace and their own learning style, and to our faith. So if we remember all those reasons why, it kind of helps us not to compare. And we're human, so I think it's going to happen. It's happened with me, where I'm like, oh my God, that kid's doing that, and my kid's not doing that. Or this mom is doing that, and I'm not doing that, right? And I think that I have to do the same thing. But again, if I remember why I started it, it was for our flexibility. It's so our home could flow the way that it needs to. And so my kids could learn at the pace that they needed to. It kind of helps me to say, okay, wait, because for instance, my second, Ethan, we all started out with a Becca, right? But then it's been 2-3 years and it's just not working for him at all, right? But because I know he benchmark, like we said, at his age, he should be at a certain pace. So I kept trying to push him into this curriculum, but he was like, forget it, Mom. I'm not doing it. I don't like it, and I don't want to do it. But you need to be at this stage. You need to be doing this. And I had to let that go, right? And found something that was at his pace. It may not be at another grade 2 pace or whatever, but for him, that's what works. So again, kind of like what Dinah said, letting go of wanting to use our kids to validate us, because if they're not where they should be, then that's a reflection on me. But if I let that go, it's how can I help my child to progress the way that he needs to, so that he can walk into his full potential. So remembering why I started it and going back to that to help guide me through.
Yeah. So thank you, and thank you, Marcy. And that's exactly it. As we talked about, with the flexibility, and I think it was Lori that had brought that up, is like you need that plan or that vision. That is critical. And I think what you'll notice is our themes have been very much about your mindset. Your mindset is key to this homeschooling journey. Your mindset and then your faith. So you'll notice our themes are kind of, softer type of topics, but because that is what we have learned is key. So Lori, do you want to pick up on that and what do you have to say about this topic?
Wow, all of you have said exactly what needed to be said. I mean, the comparisons with our children, comparisons with ourselves. And I find that the biggest struggle that we all have, we all sit here and someone viewing this might think, wow, these women are so intelligent, they've got it together, and their homeschools must look perfect. While we get on our phones afterwards, we're like, man, I can't believe I said that, I did that. This is what happened today, I'm falling apart. We all know that this, what we're projecting is, it's what it is. This is a video, a recording of a specific time and place of our plans for what we anticipate we want to have done for our families. But the reality is that it doesn't always look that way. And it's so hard, even as quote unquote seasoned homeschoolers, to not look at the next homeschooling parent and be like, wow, they've got it together. They've got more kids than I do. What am I complaining about? I have less on my plate to do with. I've got this, that, and the other, and they're doing so much more. And we have to really step back and say, okay, but what did God put these children in my family for? Why did God give me these children? It's for a reason. There was something in me that he has me to do with them, for them to teach me, for us to go out to the world with. And until we stay laser focused on what his purpose is for us independently, we will get caught up with comparing to this person and that person. And the thing is, it's not bad to look out and see what's going on around there, because that also informs us, gives us some ideas. I mean, last time we talked, we all jumped on all these resources we were sharing, like, oh, I got to get that, oh, I got to get that. And it was great because we got to share. But it wasn't a question of comparing to see, well, they're doing so great with that. Let me try and do this over here and mimic what they've got. It's a matter of, let me take from there and see how I can implement it into what ours looks like. So for me, the comparison game is really much about me. I know my girls they're strong learners, they're girls. So on the general tip, they tend to advance more in the early stages and then struggle more later on in life. So right now they're doing great. I'm the one that's struggling with comparing myself to other parents, and am I doing a good job? Am I failing in this aspect? And really stopping to say, okay, Lord, what is your purpose for me in this season right now with these children that you have blessed me with? And staying focused on that. Taking what I can from different areas. Proverbs talks about receiving wisdom, having a multitude of counselors. And we need to do that, but we also need to make sure that we focus on him first.
Thank you, Lori. And then that's so true. So ladies, we've talked about the fact that we shouldn't do it. So when you find yourself starting to do it, we need to now give some practical tips. Like, what do you do to stop that process? Okay, so Desiree, I'm going to start with you. What do you do when you find yourself doing it? What do you do?
So I think Dinah said it, I check myself. I have to give myself a check. Because a lot of the times when we start comparing ourselves or our children, the first feeling we'll feel is insecurity or frustration with our children because they're not doing X, Y, Z the way that they're supposed to at this level. And so you'll find yourself becoming a little bit aggressive or like short or curt with your children. And if you start feeling that within yourself, it's time for you to stop and check in with yourself and say, why am I feeling like this? Because I think we said this in previous recordings, relationship is way more important than academics. And if your children are struggling, that could mean that they're just not ready for what you're trying to teach them. And then again, it comes back to checking in with yourself. Why am I trying to push this child so hard to the point of frustration? And it usually is, when you check in, it's because, like Dinah said, you're trying to look like that good parent, like my kid can do this. Or you want to be them to be able to perform these parlor tricks because you want to reassure everybody that homeschooling is working. So when somebody asks them what 4 times 4 is and they say 27, you're going to feel like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? So it really is coming. I think the biggest thing that I have had to do is stop and check in with myself. And I had a friend tell me, she said the way that she combat this problem is that she came to a realization that her children may never be Einstein, but they're going to be what God intended them to be. And to just be okay with that, even if that's a garbage collector or a hairdresser or the things that are considered less glamorous, I guess, But it's okay, because that's where God has placed them to be. It's a gifting that he's placed in them. And we just need to be able to nurture that gifting rather than trying to mold them into what we want, because we think it's an honorable thing to do. So I think the biggest thing I'm trying to say with all these words is check in with yourself. When you feel like you're starting to compare your children, check in. Why am I doing this?
Thank you. Dinah, what about you? Anything to add to that?
Oh, wow. Amen and amen. No, that all of that what Desiree said, and like in my house, everybody knows that mommy has timeouts. So with kids, our kids, when they just generally, a lot of people, the kids start having a meltdown or there's a behavior that is not acceptable, and it's time for them to go and have some quiet time or whatever way that you do it in your house. So I do it for myself. I know when I start feeling the heat kind of rise up in my neck and I get frustrated, and I'm looking, and not just with them, just with kind of everything. And I start looking and, talking with friends and homeschoolers and seeing what's going on. And I start doing the comparison in my head, and I get frustrated. I can feel myself getting frustrated because I'm starting to ask myself questions like, why aren't we doing this? And why are they so far behind and more behind? When I start asking myself all these questions, and I start wanting to revamp everything, I stop. I just stop, and I said, okay, mommy's going on a timeout. I'll go into my room because I need some time to think about what I've been doing. And I literally do that. Another lady told me she does tea time. They said, mommy needs a tea time, and she just needs to go to her room and have some quiet time to settle down. If we tell our children to do that, to self-regulate, we should be self-regulating as well. And it obviously is harder to do. It's harder to say. It's easier to say than to do. But I think it's really important, because when you stop and you slow down, you can see things a little bit more clearly. Pre-COVID, when there was a lot of homeschool conferences, I used to tend to go to them. And some people say to me, oh, that's a waste of time. I need to go. And one of the reasons I would go is so that I could have a break and just use it as a time, almost like a buffet. And I would pick little buds from the different speakers, but I wouldn't go home right away. The last time we had stayed at the hotel, and being able to just kind of decompress, not just over the conference, what was going on, but just for the whole school year and what's coming up, just taking some time to just chill, have a mommy time out. COVID is a little bit different right now, things are opening up. So you can go for a walk or sit on the park bench, or just take some time out, take a couple deep breaths, and just really check your heart, check and see where you're at, and just time out.
Thank you. Marcy.
Yeah, sometimes also too, a comparison is coming from what we're looking at on the outside. So again, we're looking at somebody else and we're comparing it to ourselves. A big thing for me is trying to figure out, what am I looking at that's causing me to compare my kids or to compare myself? So sometimes it may be social media. So with that, I will probably cut it off for a little while, right? Just kind of like the mommy timeout thing. Whatever is causing you to reach to that level, I think it's good to maybe just stop from that, pause from it, and put it out of your sight. So even just for my own personal life, I've said, okay, we're not doing social media for a month. I take the app off my phone. I don't go on it unless it's like I need to maybe check my inbox or something, but I completely cut it off. And then I try to refocus myself. Maybe it's even just meetups with moms, and we're seeing everybody's kids and we're seeing other moms. And again, it brings us back to comparing. It's okay to say, I'm not going to meet up for a play date. I'm not going to do the mom meetups for a while until I refocus myself. I'm not going to do co-op for a while until I refocus, because again, all these added things might be what's causing us to start to compare our kids and compare ourselves. So we need to stop from all of that, I think, for maybe a moment, not forever, unless you feel like you need to because you just can't handle it. It's too much for you. Stop and just take that time to yourself again and just refocus. Check your heart, pray, ask God to help you. Okay, I'm comparing. There's insecurity. I need you to build me up. I need you to encourage me. Pray and ask him to do that as well. And just find the things that you enjoy doing with your kids to kind of build you up again, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Marcy. Lori.
I have to start off with saying that every time we get together and talk, I learn something. These women are just incredible women, and it's wonderful to have this in your support group to keep you grounded, to keep you sane a lot of times. And those support groups are key when we're starting to feel like we're losing ground, we're getting frustrated, we're comparing and feeling we don't measure up. Another thing that I know is key for me is wait time. And I like to talk. I like to talk a lot. My kids hear my voice, and I think sometimes I can see it in their eyes where they've just glazed over. Mommy's still talking, and I'm not listening anymore, but I'm still going. So I'm learning for that wait time. When I know my temperature is going up, I want to start lecturing them and giving them the third degree. If I say nothing, and literally just stand silently for 5 minutes and just breathe and just listen to them. Number one, sometimes they sort out their own issues. Number two, by the time I get to the third minute, I'm calm enough to stop and say, okay, why am I getting so upset? And I don't say things that I know I will regret later. So that wait time for me is just my time to shut up a minute, let God do some speaking to me, let him sort out things with them, and just allow things to calm down to a level where we can actually deal with whatever the situation is that's going on. So that's probably one of the things that I'm working on most right now, is just having that wait time, not speaking right away, and allowing my emotions to calm down and my thoughts and reasoning to catch back up.
So there you have it, folks. That's the last of our homeschooling edition, unless questions come up and we have other things to address in the possible future. But we thank you for your attention. We bless your homeschooling journey or your schooling journey for 2020, 2021 year. And remember, God has gifted you. God has equipped you for what you need to do, and he's gifted you with your children. And so just really embrace those differences. Take a deep breath, and you'll be just fine. So thanks again, everyone, and take care.